They ended up doing an angiogram so they could see the arteries, and they found that my LAD artery was blocked 100%. So if you're not someone in the healthcare fields,
tell us exactly what that means.
When that one's blacked 100%, like that's like the widowmaker heart attack.
Oh my God.
So yes, you don't survive that unless you're getting immediate treatment.
Welcome to the Forward Think Tank podcast, a place of hope, inspiration, and education around holistic health and healing. I'm your host, Jamie Mazza, a holistic health coach, mental health advocate, and dancer. Join me as I share out-of-the-box conversations with integrative doctors, healers, and exceptional forward-thinking individuals thriving on the other side of their health challenges, as well as stories from my own personal healing journey. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so happy you're here. Hello, friends. This week on the Forward Think Tank, I sit down with somebody who I have known for many years, Lauren Jeffrey. She is actually the little sister of one of my best friends who I brought on the podcast a few months back, Hillary Willie, and she herself has a very interesting story with her health. Lauren is 35 years old. She lives in Tampa, Florida with her loving husband, and she has been working as a registered dietitian for over the last 10 years. At the age of 26, yes, 26, you heard me correctly. She survived a massive heart attack. And in this episode, she sits down with me and she so willingly shares her story very candidly about that day, what was going on, signs and symptoms leading up to that, discovering that in fact it was a massive heart attack when she, of course, at that age wasn't thinking that she would have something that major happen in her life. I had heard the story never directly from Lauren, so this was shocking to me in many ways to share the details of how she drove herself to the hospital, how she was able to articulate after leaving her phone in the car to one of the techs while doing her EKG and her testing, where her car was, where her phone was in the car. Just crazy things that happened and escalated as she discovered what was going on in her body. Lauren is somebody who I've known for many years. We grew up dancing at the same dance studio. She was my younger sister's age. They grew up friendly. And so I do feel like she's somebody who's been part of my friend family for so long. As Hillary shared, these girls went through some pretty dramatic things in their life. They lost their mother. Lauren was 14 and her mother died of a heart attack. So that was something that came up in our conversation as well, as her doctors were trying to connect the dots and understand why somebody who seemingly was so healthy would have something so massive happen. Lauren was very candid in sharing details, signs and symptoms when somebody is having a heart attack, things you should pay attention to, things you should look out for. She certainly was an advocate for her health. And as she tells you, she just had that gut feeling that day to take herself to the hospital. So I want to thank you, Lauren, for sharing this story. Heart attacks are not something that I've talked about on the podcast before, but certainly something that affects so many people. And so I think it's an important learning. But not only that, Lauren has a very beautiful perspective on life. And I do believe that how she looks at life after having that experience at such a young age, and also all the life experiences she has had up until now, has really encouraged her to seek the most she can, squeeze every last drop of joy and happiness, appreciate her relationships, and truly live life with intention and on purpose. So, Lauren, thank you again for doing this with me, for sharing as openly as you did. I love you. I adore you. Everyone, as always, if you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to share it, send it to someone you love, send it to somebody who may be able to learn or benefit from hearing all of this. And please welcome Lauren to the Forward Think Tank. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Forward Think Tank. This week, I have a guest that is somebody who has been part of my life for a very long time. You may recognize her. She is one of my best friend's little sisters, Lauren Jeffrey. Lauren, thank you so much for being here, you gorgeous girl. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. As you'll hear, Lauren has a very unique story that she's going to share with us, how she survived a heart attack coming up on, you said 9 years ago, right?
Yes.
So
9 years.
this is something that, one, the story is just surprises all of us. It's something that I know I'm grateful that you feel comfortable sharing, because it is a thing that people can learn from. You know, we hear about what are the signs of heart attacks. It's not something you typically think would happen to somebody so young, but I'm sitting here sitting in a similar boat in my own way. The more that we can share these stories and increase awareness for how to help someone else, so that's why I'm here and doing this. And I'm grateful that you were willing to come on and share. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm honored that you wanted me to come on here and share my story.
Yeah. So, for people who are not familiar with you and also a little bit of, the background and why we're here talking about all of this, whatever you feel compelled to share, tell us a little bit about Lauren.
My name is Lauren. I'm currently 35. I am a registered dietitian. I live in Tampa, Florida with my husband. And actually, when I had the heart attack at 26, I was a registered dietitian then. So I've always been very cognizant about what I eat and making sure that I'm exercising. Wellness has always been a priority to me, which
Mhm.
I think is why having this heart attack is even more insane because it was something that was completely unexpected, especially someone so young and living my lifestyle. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Tell us what was going on in your life. And if you can take us back to that day, what was the point where you realized something was seriously wrong? And was anything significant, stress wise or anything like that happening in your life around that time?
So, actually, no, stress wise, I didn't really have a whole lot of stress. I didn't have a very stressful job. I
Yeah.
didn't really have any big life changes that had happened. And actually, this was in January of 2017. And it
Okay.
kind of was like a 3-day event because I did have symptoms and they started 2 days before I actually had the heart attack.
Wow.
So I had the heart attack on a Wednesday. On Monday, I started to have, I guess I would describe it, it was like almost like a gas pain or an
Okay.
indigestion feeling in my upper back.
Mm,
And similar to a gas pain, if I burped, I'd feel a little bit better.
mm,
It kind of fluctuated throughout the day, but it never completely went away.
okay.
So I had that on Monday, but it wasn't uncomfortable enough where I couldn't function. That night I had a spin class and I did the spin class and that was fine.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think anything of it. Tuesday rolls around and I still have this gas pain in my upper back, but it definitely feels a little bit worse on Tuesday.
Mm,
Still fluctuating, but a little bit worse. And
okay.
then Tuesday night before I went to bed, I felt like I was getting sick, like with the flu,
Mm, mm,
that
okay.
achy chills feeling.
Okay.
I actually texted my boss and was like, hey, not feeling so good, might not be in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday, when I woke up, no longer had the flu like symptoms, which was kind of weird. Then that discomfort in my upper back, it wasn't really like an indigestion feeling anymore. It wasn't
Mm,
fluctuating. It was kind of just this nagging discomfort that was there.
mm,
So Wednesday morning, I drove to work. And then I was sitting in the parking lot. And honestly, I did not think I was having a heart attack. I didn't think it was anything serious.
yeah.
But
Of
there's
course.
something, some gut instinct where I just wanted to go to the hospital.
Mm,
I didn't want to wait for the doctor's office to open. I just wanted to go to the hospital. And I don't know why, but
mhm.
I just felt if it was anything serious, that's where I want to be. So
Wow.
I brought myself to the hospital. Didn't realize I had been to the hospital so few times, didn't realize there was valet parking. So I'm parking in the parking garage. And when I got to the hospital, I don't know if the anxiety of being there kicked things into overdrive.
Sure.
Because once I got to the hospital, then those typical heart attack symptoms started. I'm
Wow.
sweating through my clothes. I'm hyperventilating. I'm
Oh,
really fatigued. At one point, as I'm walking into the hospital, I actually had to like crouch down and like breathe
oh my,
because I just like couldn't make it in. And in my head, I'm still not thinking I'm having a heart attack.
of
At this point,
course.
I'm having a panic attack
Yeah.
because the symptoms of a panic attack and a heart attack are very similar. So
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, I'm having a panic attack. Just breathe through it. And then I mustered up the strength. I got into the hospital. Couldn't make it to the emergency department. I ended up sitting on a bench and like waving a nurse over to me.
God.
I wish I knew who this lady was. She was an angel on earth. She got the emergency department to come over and wheel me over to triage. And then I got the EKG. And at this point, when I got the EKG, I'm in a ton of pain. My chest feels like it's exploding.
So you
So,
were able to articulate to that nurse once you got her attention, you were able to articulate somewhat
yes,
what was going on?
yes.
Okay.
able to articulate that. As soon as you tell people like you're having chest pain, they're going to get you over there right
Yeah.
away. But when I was getting the EKG, at that point I was in so much pain that I couldn't really articulate much and I couldn't sit still either. I don't know if you've ever been in so much pain where like you're just like you have to keep moving.
Yeah.
So actually the woman doing my EKG had to leave the room and get somebody else to come in to tell me if you don't sit still, like we can't do anything for you.
Oh, wow.
So that was like the worst few minutes of my life. You're in all this pain and like they
Yeah.
have to like clamp all of the leads and they have to read it. And as soon as
Yep.
they saw the EKG, they said, you're about to see a lot of doctors. And then they rushed me into the cath lab and
And you were there alone, right?
mhm.
Did anybody know that you had taken yourself to the hospital at that point?
Yes. So the person that I had been dating at that point knew, and then my boss at work knew.
Mm.
So people knew, but I don't think anyone thought anything of it. No one was like, oh, she's in there having a heart attack by
Right,
herself.
right.
You
Yeah,
know, it
she's
just,
going to give herself some peace of mind, most like what she's
exactly.
feeling.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I was in the cath lab and they're trying to explain what's going on. And at that point in my head,
Blacking
I'm
out.
thinking you could cut me open with a chainsaw right now. And if it's gonna make me feel better, I'll sign to that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So they ended up doing an angiogram so they could see the arteries and they found that my LAD artery was blocked 100%. So if you're not someone in the healthcare fields,
Yeah. Tell us
LA
exactly what that
when
means.
that one's blocked 100%, like, that's like the widowmaker heart attack.
Oh my god.
So, yes, you don't survive that unless you're getting immediate treatment. So they placed a stent. I mean, I'm drugged up at this point, but I do
Yeah.
remember feeling immediate relief that pain
Okay.
provided. Mhm.
Wow, Lauren. Holy crap.
Yeah. But honestly, this entire time, I'm still not thinking I'm having a heart attack. I
Uh-huh.
didn't realize that's what it was until after the fact when I was more with it and awake
Yeah.
and then they explained what had happened and I realized the severity. But during it, I had no clue really what was going on.
Mm. So this is going to sound like a very naive question, but I learned this in talking to your sister. I had assumed you had some type of surgery down the front. I had a sternotomy to get
Mm-mm.
this massive tumor out of my chest. So I assumed there was some sort of surgery involved. Can you tell us how they got the stent into you?
So I'm on
If
like
you
I
know. I mean,
honestly
if
don't
you
know all the
even
medical terminology, but no, it's not some kind of open heart surgery.
okay,
They can either go up through your groin or through your wrist. And I think that if they're able to, they prefer to go through your wrist just because the recovery is easier.
gotcha.
So basically, they go through the artery in your wrist.
Wow,
And I don't know if they thread the stent through that to that part of your heart where
that's
that
amazing.
blockage is.
Yeah.
But they do it so quickly. It's
Mm.
really amazing.
Okay. So would I mean, did they put you I'm just again comparing like things that I've been through. Did they put you under anesthesia for that? Did they or it was
Not totally, not totally,
okay.
but
Wow.
you are heavily sedated, yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Woo, girl. How long did they keep you in the hospital for after that? I imagine they wanted to monitor you a bit.
Just 2 days.
That's it.
Yeah, but throughout that stay, those 2 days, they did a lot of different testing and labs and imaging because, of course, they wanted to know what happened. What did this stem from?
Yeah.
And they never really found an answer. They determined because my mom had died so young from a heart attack,
Yeah.
they determined that it was genetic, but they couldn't really pinpoint exactly what had happened. And
Which
to this day, we still don't know.
yeah. I mean, how did that make you feel to hear that feedback?
You know, it was kind of a mixed reaction. Of course, when something happens like that, you want an answer.
Yeah.
You want to know why did this happen so that you can prevent it in the future.
Mm,
But at the same time, there was a little bit of peace in knowing that there wasn't really anything wrong.
sure. That makes sense.
But it's just something that you have to monitor. And I
Mhm.
go to the cardiologist every year. So I'm getting checked out every year and
Yeah, you're
couple
staying
of years
up.
I'll do a heart echo and So they're keeping tabs on me. One thing that my previous cardiologist had said when I was living up in Rochester still was that a lot of times when people have a second heart attack, which hopefully that does not happen to me, but it usually presents in a similar way so they know that it's
Mm.
happened.
Mm.
So I guess that's kind of helpful too in a way because
Yeah.
if I'm not feeling those symptoms,
Right.
probably okay.
Yeah, I would say so. And I would think that the fact that you are an active person and you eat well, like you do a lot of the things. I mean, it's hard, I also do those things, and people sit here and they're like, "Well, how did something like this happen to you or your sister?" It's not always the full piece of the puzzle, and if there was a
Mhm.
genetic component of that, okay, well, then our hands are a little bit tied, but it maybe in terms of maintaining good health, the fact that you have those things in place is definitely working for you and your long-term recovery.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that people don't realize, you can do everything right and something can still go horribly wrong. But on one of my follow ups, my cardiologist had said that the fact that I did eat well and was in such good shape, it was really crucial for me in my recovery. And the fact that I survived this heart attack. Had I not been in good shape, I might not have had as much time to get myself to the hospital and get help. Where being in good shape and taking care of myself probably did buy me a little bit more time and helped me with my recovery afterwards. So,
Absolutely. And, I wonder if it made the symptoms that you started to have that much more noticeable because you weren't somebody who walked around with a lot of pain or discomfort and just would brush it off. We don't know. But what a miracle. And no doubt that angels were watching over you that day. Like you said, something that gut feeling, something just told me to go to the hospital. And look
yeah,
how that saved your life.
yeah, it
Truly.
did. It definitely did.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know a lot of those details, so thank you for spelling that out.
Mhm.
So what are some of the early or subtle signs of a heart attack, especially in women who may be watching this? I think heart attack, I think tingling or like numbness or like that sensation in your left arm, the sweating. I'm asking as like somebody who's learning as you're answering this question.
Yeah. So I think the symptoms I had, they don't sound like typical symptoms, but for women can be. So
Mm,
indigestion or any kind of like discomfort in your back. It could be in
mm,
your chest as well,
mhm,
discomfort in your back. So I mentioned that my mom had a heart attack. And I know that prior to her heart attack, she would complain of like it felt like a band of pressure across her chest, like
mm.
feeling pressure or a heaviness across your chest. I think that some people also have issues with nausea or jaw pain or it can present in a lot of different ways. Also, another one with women, which I didn't have this symptom, but they say that women get this like overwhelming sense of impending doom. I don't really
Hmm.
know what, because I didn't have that. So I don't know exactly what that would feel like, but that is also a common symptom for women, this sense of impending doom.
Yeah,
Which
that's
I mean,
interesting.
how do you have that and think like, oh, this is a heart attack? It could be a number
Right,
of things.
right. So if somebody suspects that they may be having a heart attack, what should they do?
So, of course, people should be going, to their primary care physician regularly just to make sure that they're at their baseline. But one thing that I learned in my ordeal, it was the right thing to go to the hospital, but I did a lot of things wrong in the fact that I drove myself. I parked in the parking garage. If you're feeling like you might be having a heart attack or something just feels very off, they had told me that the best thing to do is to call an ambulance.
Mm,
Because if you bring yourself to the hospital, luckily for me, there was somehow no one in the waiting room. But a lot of times there's a crowd in the waiting room. And if you're having chest pain, that they do try to get you in quicker. But when you take an ambulance, they kind of bypass all of that and get
right.
there a lot quicker. So I would say if you're ever feeling like something serious is happening, call an ambulance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a good one. Um, yeah, I mean, I think about you driving yourself. And again, like I've heard this story a couple of times from Hillary, but like not obviously from you directly. So to just picture all of this, I asked who knew that you were going to the hospital. At what point did you contact your family and tell them what was going on? Was anybody living at home
The
in
crazy
Rochester?
another detail. So from when I was in the cath lab, in this anxiety ridden panic when I get to the hospital, I forgot my phone in the car. And when I'm in the cath lab and I'm in all this pain, somehow I was still able to explain to somebody in there where my car was in the parking garage and that my phone was in there.
Wow.
So somebody who had been in the cath lab went to my car, got my phone, contacted the person I was dating,
Yeah.
and he then relayed the message to everyone else.
Okay. Holy guacamole.
So this is all going on while I'm in the throes of a heart attack. I didn't know who was being contacted. I didn't know who knew,
Yeah.
but people were at the hospital for me by the time that I was with it again.
Yeah. Right. So you're saying you're like heavily sedated as you're like going through that process. Can you remember or even distinguish, were there racing thoughts going through your mind? Because you said they didn't fully tell you everything until after, right? They said you're about to see a lot of doctors, you're going through a procedure. Do you remember being able to like separate your thoughts at that point?
Hmm. So I definitely recall like when they first rushed me in, explaining to them about where my phone was. I remember that they gave me some crushed aspirin and they gave me a nitroglycerin.
Hmm.
I do remember thinking, like, why isn't this working? Am I not feeling better?
Yeah.
And then after I had signed the consent for them to do the angiogram, then it really just becomes a blur. I don't really remember
Understandable.
that point until pretty much until I was up in a hospital bed.
Oh my goodness. I know you had said when you shared the history of your mom passing and what was going on there, was there anything that they had done, like any tests that they can do to determine a genetic predisposition, or was it just an assumption because of that situation?
I think I think it was a combination of the fact that everything came back normal. And, it's not very common for people young,
Yeah.
like my mom was 46 when she died. It was such a strong association that they figured it was genetic. And I think at the time, I had talked with my cardiologist about genetic testing, but
Hmm.
he didn't think that there was anything at that point that would really point to like, oh, this gene had a mutation or something. He
Okay.
didn't, science was far enough along to be
Okay.
able in something like that. So that's why they kind of just said it's something genetic. We're not exactly sure if it's a gene mutation or maybe something like a congenital defect. They were able to really determine that.
And at that point, it's like, okay, the event already happened. Now we're
Yeah.
going to stay on top of it. We're going to make sure we monitor you. So, since having the heart attack, have you made any lifestyle changes or any other changes in your life that you feel may have had an impact or an effort to reduce the possibility of having another one? Is there any advice that they gave you or anything that you found yourself like, I'm going to change this up?
Not really. I think because I had already been exercising every day and eating well. In that aspect, I didn't really have to change anything. Of course, after you have a heart attack, there is a medication regimen that they put you on kind of as a prophylactic thing so that it would prevent a heart attack in the future. Something like, a baby aspirin I take every day, a low dose of a statin, just to kind of
Okay.
keep you back.
Okay.
So that's really the biggest change because before that, I really hadn't been on any medications. I make it a point to continue exercising, to continue eating well. But really one of the things that they said was like, you just need to live your life and not worry so much about having another one because they don't know it's going to happen again. And they seem to think that it wouldn't, but who really knows? So it's always in the back of my mind, but I try not to perseverate on it too much.
I think that's important. And I try to be mindful of these conversations because I've had conversations with people going through all different types of health challenges. I don't want to make anyone relive the trauma. You're trying to do this as a means of education and not make it all come back to the surface for you. And I think knowing and seeing how you are living your life, you're thriving, living down in sunny Florida, you're happily married, doing all the things, like not letting any of that stop you, as you should. It's such a beautiful example of perseverance and enjoying all that life has to offer, because as you very well know, I don't know, I've explained my situation on this podcast before as like this bomb drops on your timeline of life and just like blows up everything that you thought that you knew. So how do we pivot, and how do we not allow that to define us? I think you're such a perfect example of somebody who doesn't. I'd love to hear that. Sure, it's in the back of your mind, but it's back there. It's not at the forefront. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. But it took a lot of time for it to get back there.
Yeah.
It was at the forefront
Sure.
for that first year or two after.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to kind of live your life around this thought of, oh my gosh, this happened to me and is that going to happen again? It's really just
Shocking.
something that helps you forward.
Yeah. Were there any limitations in the early days following putting in the stent and the whole procedure?
Not that they formally said, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this.
Yeah.
Right after the stent, your wrist they don't want you moving it much because that's where they place the stent through.
Mm.
I couldn't use my hand a lot for a week after. But in terms of limitations, your body just feels limited, because I went from doing a spin class on Monday, and then by Wednesday evening, I could barely walk up the stairs without being winded. Now, I was very fortunate because the amount of damage to my heart was very minimal. So my heart function is
Thank God.
normal.
Thank God.
But anytime you have an event like that, it kind of knocks you back, where I was almost starting from scratch at
Mm.
that point. So not only is my body just exhausted and to relearn a lot of things in terms of like endurance, but I don't trust my body anymore either. I ended up going to cardiac rehab
Okay.
for did 12 sessions. And my cardiologist was like, huh, you're going to get bored. You're not going to want to stay there. Like, you're young. You can do it on your own. But I'm really glad that I did stick it out, because when you're there, you're hooked up to all these monitors. You have people closely watching you. They can tell you, okay, you're overdoing it right now. Like, pull it back a little bit.
Yeah.
So it definitely helped me to gain my confidence and just working out again and being able to do it on my own afterwards. But in those months after, you do feel more exhausted, and I was not able to do the things that I had done prior to the heart attack.
Yeah.
So slowly throughout the year, I had to build up to that level of fitness again.
Mhm.
Whereas now I back to normal,
Yeah.
and I really don't have any restrictions at this point, but back then, yeah, it was quite a recovery.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I have no doubt I've gone through some things of my own, especially with a really bad autoimmune flare, where similar feeling of I felt winded going up the stairs or
Mhm.
walking like 50 feet outside. And it does, in a way, this word feels like the wrong word, but it does feel like your body, like there is, I want to use the word betrayal. Your body's not betraying you. Your body's obviously trying to tell you something by these symptoms, right? But the aftermath of it and starting again from square one when we are young, and it's like, okay, but days prior when I didn't feel this way, I was doing X. Um, it's a lot to wrap your mind around, and I'm really glad that you advocated for yourself in going to the cardiac PT.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pushed my surgeon after my sternotomy. I was in a lot of pain and I was like, this can't be normal. Should I be going to PT? He did some removal around my diaphragm area. I feel like that's so invasive. Like, you
Mhm.
need to learn tips and tools. And for you, it's like they're hooking you up to things or collecting data. It's giving you proof and encouragement. And as you said, confidence that, like, it's okay to do this, or maybe they're helping you modify if you need, or I don't know, like what types of exercise they're showing you maybe that you can do at home. It was really, and still is, something I'm still going through. It's so helpful. And also just to have some accountability and people who that's the line of work that they're in, so to
Right.
just have the right people supporting you, I think, is a huge piece of it for sure.
It is funny though that you say betrayal because that is kind of what it feels like. And I think when you go through something like a heart attack or cancer, you are kind of like, what the heck? Like I've been
Mhm.
treating you so well and you're
Yeah.
you're gonna do it to me.
For sure. Like, I try to look at this and I'm like, okay, what's the lesson? What do I need to do? Okay, maybe I need to slow down.
Exactly.
Maybe I need to stress less. The theme that's been coming up is enjoying life more, like trying not to let this consume me. And it's tough, but remembering that days here on this earth, like, we don't know. We don't know if that's 50 more years. I don't know if it's 5 more years. I mean, I hope that it's a long life ahead, but it's the moments in between, like all of these big monumental goals, or that's what creates your life. It's all these little micro moments. So enjoy it.
It's so true. So true.
Yes. Was there anything that you did to support yourself mentally to get through that rehabilitation process in the early days?
That's something that I think about at times. I really didn't. And in hindsight, I do think that I would have benefited from seeing a therapist
Yeah.
because one of the things after having the heart attack was it felt very isolating.
Mm.
I'm 26 years old at this point, and when I went to cardiac rehab, everyone there is 60 plus.
Yeah.
And they were amazing. They were
Yeah.
great people,
You're
but
feeling
no
like I
one
don't
there.
belong
I
here.
in common with them. And I just didn't really have anybody that could relate to the situation I was in.
Mm.
So I did feel like it was a bit lonely at times because I'm just trying to navigate this on my own. So
Yeah.
looking back, I do think that I probably should have found a therapist or something of that nature just to have somebody to talk it through with.
Hmm.
I didn't. And at this point,
Yeah.
I'm in a good place. But for anybody going through something like that, I definitely see the benefit in having somebody to just talk it out and maybe gain a different perspective on things.
Yeah. Did you find anybody, and I'm trying to think, okay, 2017 was the world of social media. Like, did you find anybody on social media? Were there groups, or like, did you look into anything like that as like a resource for maybe young people who have had something similar to you?
I think at one point I did try to search out a support group or something
Yeah.
like didn't find anything. I did end up getting in contact with two other women who didn't necessarily go through the same type of heart attack or heart event that I had, but did go through something similar along the same lines.
Yeah.
And I did chat with both of them regularly. And that really helped just to kind of feel like I'm not so alone and
Yeah.
this happens to other people.
Yeah.
That definitely was very helpful throughout my recovery.
Yeah. Yes. I'm happy to hear that. I know that finding those people for me have been really helpful because no matter how many times you have conversations with your friends, your family members, no matter what they've gone through, having somebody who has directly relatable experience, somebody
Yeah.
who has walked in your shoes, they get it in a different way. So I'm glad to hear that you found those people and that you found those connections to be helpful and supportive. If people are listening to this and you're going through your own health challenge you might be faced with, it is helpful to talk to people who get it. So I'm really happy that that was something that was helpful for you.
And I think nowadays with social media and like TikTok, I have seen go through the TikTok rabbit hole
Yeah.
and I come across a lot of younger people who have gone through heart events or heart attack. So I do think that for people that are experiencing that this day and age, it can be helpful to find some of those accounts where they're going through the same thing and you can listen to their story and reach out to them. And it's definitely more prevalent nowadays. Whereas in 2017, social media was around but
Yes.
wasn't to the extent that it is today.
I think people are sharing a lot more openly now when they have experiences, maybe for that reason, or it's also cathartic and it's part of their own healing process. What role did your support system play in your healing journey?
A huge one. I think that anytime you go through some kind of big life change or something traumatic, it's very important to have that group of family and friends that you can rely on. I had the heart attack on a Wednesday, and at that point, I was still up in Rochester, and Hillary and my dad were down in Florida. They came up the next day, the
Yeah.
first flight. and they were present for everything. It plays such a huge role in having those people to lean on and cry in front of and not feel embarrassed about anything. And also having good friends. I have some great friends that I would lean on and cry in front of. And then
Yeah.
where I was working up in Rochester, I had amazing coworkers and a really great boss who were also very understanding of the situation and so flexible. And that also was so huge in my recovery because then I didn't have the stress
Pressure.
of, okay, I need to be at work and I need to be grinding. They were so understanding. If I needed a half day, I could take a half day. If I showed up and could only make it through an hour of work, that was fine. I really had a lot of support in all aspects of my life.
That makes me happy to hear. I know your family personally, and I know how amazing each and every one of them are. So I have no doubt that you felt that love from them, and it's palpable, even just, in videos I see or pictures I see of all of you now that, most of you, except for Ben, I guess, are down in Florida. It always brings me joy to see you all together. But it's also nice to hear that from an employer perspective as well, that especially now in this modern world where I think there's a lot of expectation placed on us to perform, 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 and constantly make sure we're keeping up. Sometimes it's that own internal pressure that we put on ourselves. But I'm really glad to hear that you had support in the working environment because it's the last thing that anybody needs, but especially when you're dealing with something like a heart attack, it's like manage that stress or anything, any type of illness or surgery or any type of recovery process. It's like, the less we can stress ourselves out, the easier it's going to be. How has your outlook on life changed since your heart attack?
I think that I've always had a unique perspective, or at least since 14. When my
Mhm.
mom died, being so young and having to grow up so quickly, it definitely changed my outlook on life. But I think that when you're faced with your own mortality too, it you're just so grateful for every day that you have. And you just realize like every day that you get to wake up and feel good and live life, it is such a privilege. So I really try to just enjoy every moment. Like you had said, it's those little moments. I mean, the big things are great too, but those little moments, being able to enjoy those. And I think also going through something so traumatic, you also just learn to not sweat the small stuff and to just anytime you're getting stressed about something or getting worked up, just taking a moment, breathing and thinking like, is this that important?
Mm.
Not a life or death situation.
Yes.
Is it that important? Is it going to be important in a week from now, a month, a year? There's so few things that are that important where we should be getting so worked up. Going through something traumatic, it just opens your eyes to like what's really important in life.
Great perspective. And I think that's important for everybody to hear. It's something we don't often realize because we all live in our own brain and we're all thinking about the next thing, right? But when you have something like that that really halts you it makes time stand still,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, okay, where are my priorities? What
Hmm.
needs to shift? Is this little thing worth worrying about? Really great perspective. And I know that it makes me emotional, and I'm not going to allow myself to go there, knowing that at 14 years old, that was something that, you and your siblings had to deal with. And then seeing all the things that have continued to impact your family, I remember talking to your sister, or maybe this was after the initial treatments and everything. She's like, it's hard to hear people just say, "You're so strong" all the time. She's like, "I don't always wanna be strong." And I
Right.
never understood that until I was faced with my own situation, and it's like, yeah, you don't always wanna be strong. You don't always wanna be picking up the pieces and dusting ourselves off and putting on a happy face all the time. But I truly know that the joy and like the fun and the silliness that radiates from every single one of you Turkovitzes is something that is so embedded in who you are as people. And I love the bond that you have. And it's just it's been a roller coaster, and so to
Oh, for
even
sure.
be sitting here having this conversation with you, like, talking about Lauren's heart attack, it still just blows my mind, but I have no doubt that that perspective at such a young age, it changed everything. Of course
Yeah.
it did, and now to have, this perspective 9 years of perspective in your own
Mm,
life, it just, as you said, like it continues to place the emphasis on don't sweat the small stuff and enjoy your life. So thank you for,
yeah. No, we definitely, Markovitz has been through a roller coaster. And sometimes we say, like, we're either the unluckiest people or the luckiest people.
right. Right.
But I choose to see us as the luckiest. So,
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I think this goes without saying. Did this experience shift your sense of gratitude or purpose, perhaps?
I mean, I have been a grateful person for a while, but I'm definitely even more so now. I'll find myself like I'll make it home from work and I'll think, okay, I made it home from work. I didn't get into an accident. I'm just happy to be home. You are grateful for all the little things and all the little moments. And I will actually stop and think like, oh, I'm so grateful I was able to do this. Or I think about one of my favorite things that we do every day is after dinner. Jack, who's my husband, and I will take our dog for an after dinner walk. It's one of
Hmm.
my favorite things. It's like my favorite part of the day because
Love.
we'll just chat and
Yeah.
we're just so like year round, whenever we go out, there's like a nice warm breeze and the
Hmm.
skies are beautiful. And like, I always just think like, oh, I'm just, how lucky am I to be able to do this every day?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a perfect example of something that's so little, but it does, like, it feels so good, and I think in a
Right.
world where we're so glued to technology, I love hearing that you find that break in your day with your
Yeah.
husband. You get out and you're enjoying that beautiful Florida weather, um, and just connecting, like
Yeah.
downloading on the day, relating to each other. How else outside of what you've shared so far has it changed the way that you approach relationships?
Um, I think that I think that after the heart attack, just I don't want to play games in my relationships. I just want to be honest to the people that I care about. I'm always myself with them. You just realize like life is too short to, have any of that drama or, be petty. It's fine. Obviously, I'm still human and I'm gonna get into arguments with the people I love. I don't like spending a lot of time being mad at somebody or feeling like I can't talk to them. Like life is so short. I just want to love the people I love when I
Mhm.
can. I try not to spend a lot of time upset with anybody or if we get into an argument, like let's resolve it as soon as we can, or sometimes agree to disagree. But it just definitely makes you appreciate the relationships you have and not want to take them for granted. So
Beautifully said, Lauren. I love that. It's important. Do you think there's anything we've left out of this conversation that we haven't touched on so far?
I don't think so. I think that, anytime I tell my story, the message I'm always trying to get across is number one, take care of yourself. You know your body better than anyone else. And if you feel like something is wrong or you're not at your baseline or something's off, always advocate for yourself and always get checked out. Because I think that a lot of times people don't want to get that tough news or, a difficult diagnosis, but knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And the more we put things off, not everything's going to resolve itself. And just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah. And look, and that quick action, that
Yeah.
pivot, leaving the parking lot at work, that saved your life.
Yes. Yeah. But then
Absolutely.
I also think that another message for my story is just really to live your life and not to worry about so many of the little trivial things. It's easier said than done. I get caught up in the day to day as well. Just to take a step back and really enjoy what is happening in the now and not worry so much about the future and just appreciate what you have and the people you have while you have them. So,
A great message that I also needed to hear. So thank you for that.
of course.
One final question that I ask everybody because you're on the Forward Think Tank, and we may have captured bits and pieces of this throughout the conversation, but just to sum it up, what keeps you moving forward in your life?
Oh, hands down, my family. The people I love in my life. All of my decisions in some way are kind of based around them and my love for them. And so my family will always be top priority in my life.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. This was a great conversation. I definitely learned something, and I have no doubt that everyone who listens to this story is going to gain a lot of perspective out of it. So I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Of course, it was. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, I would appreciate you taking a moment to please leave a 5-star review. Every review helps visibility with this episode to reach more people. And I am on a mission to help people learn alternate resources to support themselves in their healing journey on their road to health. So please take a moment to leave a review, leave a comment. I read every single one and I respond back. And of course, the most helpful thing you can do is to share this episode. If you found it helpful, if you found it entertaining, please share it on social media, send it to a friend, a loved one, someone you think could find this helpful. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.